So the topic of mini cuts has been coming up a lot lately. So I wanted to give you kind of my opinion on when they should be used, when they shouldn't be used, how to go about doing them, and everything you need to think of. Now keep in mind, everyone has a different opinion on what a mini cut is. I'm gonna give you my opinion on what they are and how they should be used. But there's a lot of different ways to do things, and it's not like there's some sort of handbook you can just look at and say, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. So anyway, to me, a mini cut is for someone who's in a longer building phase. They're not gonna be cutting anytime soon, but they've already been doing it for quite a while, and they're starting to get a little uncomfortable with how much fat they're building, so they want to quickly cut back, get to a little bit better spot, and then get back out and go back into the building phase again. Now remember, it's called mini cut. This is supposed to be short and sweet. A lot of people say, I'm gonna do a mini cut for the next 12, 16 weeks, and I'm like, that's just a regular cut, in my opinion. A mini cut should be 2 to 4 weeks, maybe up to 6 in rare circumstances, but they should be short and they should be aggressive. Now, unfortunately, most people who are asking about a mini cut aren't people who are in these longer building phases. It's usually people who are going through a reverse who desperately need to put their metabolism back into a better place, but they don't like that they're gaining weight during the process, so they want a quick cut back. This is a mistake, and it's only going to stop you from getting where you want to be. So, if you're thinking about starting a mini cut, first of all, I will explain how to go about it in a little bit here, but what I wanted you to do first is ask yourself these questions. Have you not dieted at least as long as you'd previously dieted? Where are your calories and cardio at right now? And do you have enough room to make these more aggressive adjustments that I will show you how to do in a minute? And possibly most importantly, are you trying to fix your metabolism from a long history of yo-yo dieting that has you in a bad place? If this is you, a mini cut is absolutely not the right call for you, and it's going to do more harm than good. And this is because not only do you need to make sure you stay out of a deficit for a long enough time to put yourself back into a good enough place to start seeing results again, but you also need to mentally learn how to be okay with holding off on cutting every time you start getting a little uncomfortable. And that's because when you do this, this is what keeps you stuck. You're constantly dieting over and over again every time you gain a few pounds, and it just destroys your metabolism. So I just cannot stress enough. If you're reverse dieting, if you're not in a true building phase, if you're not sure if you're already in a good enough spot to cut or not, do not mini cut. All this is likely to do is tank your metabolism, undo all that work that you've already done, and make you start over, and this is just not something you want. Now, with all that being said, if you are in an okay place to start, this is how you're gonna go about doing it. What you wanna do is drop your calories by about 30 to 40% from your current calories, because like I said, this needs to be aggressive. You're getting in and getting out quickly, and you just wanna zap some fat off real quick and get out. But we do need to make sure we're prioritizing keeping that muscle, so make sure you're keeping that protein high. Don't take any calories away from protein, and if you're not consuming at least 1 gram per pound, I would highly recommend you do this. When it comes to your carb and fat splits, I'd recommend not going below 15% of your calories from fat at the absolute minimum. And I rarely drop anyone below 20%, but 15 is like that absolute bottom. So pay attention to that. And then the rest is going to be coming from carbs, which is probably going to be quite a bit. It's going to be in your best interest too to make sure you're planning ahead as much as possible and set yourself up for success. If you've been watching my videos at all, you know I'm all about sustainability, but this is not about sustainability in this short period. All right, you can do anything for 2 to 4 weeks, right? So it's going to be a more aggressive approach. You're not going to be able to be as flexible, but again, it's just for a short period of time. You also want to make sure you're keeping your training intensity up. This doesn't mean you should do a lot more training, but you don't want to back off your training and do a bunch of cardio, as this is not going to help with retaining muscle. And it's a mistake a lot of people make. They just kind of stop their training and just go crazy with cardio, and that's a recipe to lose muscle quickly. Now, this doesn't mean just go nuts with your training volume, which is another mistake a lot of people make, is they just kind of go crazy with their training when they start a cut. And instead of it being pretty much the same like it should be, whether you're cutting or building, your strength training should stay relatively similar. You use the time out of a deficit to build, you use the time in a deficit to retain what you've built. So remember, calories are going to be at a premium, energy levels are going to be low, so if you just add tons of training volume, you're going to burn out fast. As far as cardio goes, if you're generally active as it stands, then you probably don't need to add much cardio. You could add in a little, maybe 1 or 2 hours for the week. But if you're not active in general, if you have a pretty sedentary job, then adding in some more cardio could be helpful, or at least at a minimum, create a step count and make sure you're moving quite a bit. And again, you can add a couple more hours of cardio too. It really just depends, but I do prefer to do the majority of things through nutrition in a mini cut, because again, calories are going to be pretty low, so energy is going to be at a premium. Now, typically I recommend not losing more than about 1% of your weight on average per week. that kind of goes out the window when it comes to a mini cut. Now you can be more aggressive and you can do more like 2 or even 3% because it's just for a few weeks and your body's not going to have a lot of time to adapt. But remember too, it's not just about the scale, and there's a lot of variables, especially in that first week. If you make a very significant drop in calories, you're going to lose a lot of water, glycogen, and things like that. So it's not all body fat. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, as far as how to come out of the mini cut and go back into your building phase, you don't need to slowly reverse diet out more like you would after a longer cut. You can be more aggressive, but at the same time, you probably still don't want to go right back to what you were doing before. So what I would suggest is estimate your kind of rough maintenance calories based on your pace of weight loss, and then adding those calories back in, or a little bit less if you want to be a little conservative here. So for instance, if you're losing 2 pounds per week on average, using the 3,500 calorie rule, which as I always want to stress, it's not exact, but it's good enough to give you a rough starting point. That'd be a 1,000 calorie deficit per day, so you could add in 1,000 calories to start from there. And as always, you can be more or less aggressive depending on your goal. If you're more interested in building as fast as possible, you're a little bit more aggressive. If you want to be a little bit more conservative with the fat gain, you'd be a little bit more conservative. But just remember, there's no guarantees here, right? There's no set way. It's all about monitoring and adjusting based on how things are going. Don't stress out about it too much. Don't feel like if you do something for 1 week and it's too many calories or not enough that it's going to ruin everything. It's not that serious. You just have to see how things go and adjust accordingly. Now you may be wondering, if you're gonna have to get pretty low calorie to do this, how many calories is too low when you're cutting? So make sure you check out this top video next, and I'll cover the different signs you need to look for to know how many calories is too low for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.